Hi, today I'm met here with Cara Toynton. She's a child and family therapist, a photographer, and a mother of two. So her Instagram handles are Mama Maze and Make Play Explore. So she is exactly the woman we need to be speaking to because she can help us with all our struggles during adapting to change during COVID-19. But she also has lots of great ideas for us to entertain our children. Thank you.
Thank you for such a lovely introduction. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. You know, getting there, dealing with change, dealing with having people around me constantly.
Yeah.
Lack of personal space and personal time.
Absolutely. It's such a challenge for everyone in like different ways, whether that be adjusting to working from home or homeschooling your kids or change of location. And of course, the things that we're going to talk about today in change is to welcoming little people into the world as well.
Yeah. And I think the best place to start is probably at the beginning. So people who are trying to conceive, I mean, there's been a stack of babies being conceived during COVID. They're calling them coronials. It turns out a lot of couples just needed to spend a lot of time together and get busy and make which is amazing. But not great if you're going through IVF and you actually have underlying fertility issues and you're going through the process of dealing with those, because IVF has been put on hold. It's now, some procedures are now back on. I know they're doing embryo transfers. But I guess if you're at that beginning phase, it's tricky. So what are some tips that you have for people that are in that IVF fertility journey? Ways that they can, cope, adapt to change, make a plan for the future when it is so uncertain?
Yeah, I think it's really, really tough time for people, especially, here in Australia, we're coming into this off the back of the bushfires as well. So a lot of people have experienced trauma in relation to that. And now we're going into this time of like unprecedented uncertainty, which is really, really challenging for a lot of people. So the first thing to do is to really acknowledge how upsetting that is. Your disappointment that your plans have changed, but also to remain hopeful. It's really can be really tricky. I don't know if you found with a lot of the people that you've worked with, but certainly my experience with people who are having challenges with their fertility is often it's kept private and they're often not sharing that struggle. So while everyone's having a challenging time and a lot of people can be vocal about the things that are happening in terms of, being at home or work changes and job losses or being an essential worker and having to go to work, for people who have been undergoing fertility treatment, that might have been really private and might have been something just between them and their partner. So they're silently grieving those changes behind the scenes. So one of the things that they can do is, if they have a support therapist, then definitely access telehealth services, which are happening at the moment, to be able to talk about that, work through those feelings. But if they're able to open up to family members or friends and connect in with that loss and that sense of disappointment. And you mentioned there's a lot of coronials being conceived at this time. So, focusing on your relationship as well when you're at home. And it's really, I don't want to say don't let it get in the way of things, because of course, when you're trying to conceive a baby, your life exists in 2-week cycles. So you've got your 2 weeks while you're ovulating, and then you try to conceive, and then you've got your 2 weeks waiting to see if that worked. If you're going through fertility treatment, then you've got all of those additional medical procedures that you're having happen. But there's always that game of waiting, and then the grief and loss that comes if that hasn't worked out the first time. So my number one thing would be for people to make space and accept and acknowledge those feelings that arise for them. Because if we start struggling with our feelings as well, then it can exacerbate what is already a really challenging situation. We can't control the coronavirus in itself. There's a lot that's out of our control at the moment with the restrictions that are needing to be in place. So we don't want to try and control our feelings by telling ourselves we shouldn't feel that way. Or I'm seeing a lot of checking our privilege on social media. And while it's really great to be aware that we have privilege when we do, and that we can use that to help other people, it's also okay to be really disappointed about the changes that are happening. So we talk about a struggle switch in the back of your brain. If you imagine that you've got a struggle switch back there, and if your struggle switch is turned on, then you might be feeling really disappointed or really frustrated or really angry. And then you feel angry about feeling angry. And then you might be feeling, well, then I'm stressed because I'm angry, and I shouldn't be stressed because I'm trying to conceive, and all of those kind of things. So really focus on what is in your control at the moment. That might be something like working with you around optimal health and nutrition to support those processes that are going into place, and connecting with loved ones, and also making room and accepting those thoughts and feelings that are coming up for you at this time. Yeah. And we'll probably really touch on that a lot more throughout this chat.
Yeah, I mean, the gift of time at the moment for couples who are going through IVF, it's usually like, oh, you're a ticking time bomb.
Yeah.
To like extract as many eggs as possible and get them into you as quick as as fast as possible too. And I guess it's kind of put a pause on all of that, which in a way could be flipped into a positive, as you now have a few months to focus on preconception care.
Yeah.
A few months to reduce stress. Like, although it's such a stressful time, it's important to acknowledge that stress does interfere with your hormones as well. And once you are on that IVF bandwagon, there's certain periods where you can't have sex, unprotected sex.
Yes.
With your partner. So if you fancy using a condom, or so I guess it is a time where you can kind of get back into sync with your own body, your own cycle. Potentially you may not be having synthetic hormones at the moment as well. And like I said, reconnecting with your partner. Yeah.
And also, taking back a little bit of your day. I mean, it's when people are going in there, having to go and get those regular blood tests, and often it is a bit of a covert operation. People aren't sharing that with employees and friends and family and stuff like that, because they're unfortunately still to this day seems to exist a bit of stigma around, being able to fall pregnant or not fall pregnant. I think that's really shifting, but that's a different conversation. But having that freedom in your day to not have those things, you can still be really disappointed about something and feel really positive and hopeful about this extra time, the time to rest. Maybe for some people their work situation was extremely stressful, so that's been able to change for them. But then also people who I do want to mention, because it is quite an expensive undertaking for a lot of people, that if your job has been affected or your partner has been affected, then definitely don't feel too proud to go and sign up for the stimulus packages and the support that is available. That's a really important thing for people to do as well, so that they can financially support, this dream that they have of having a child, and then make plans for the future. This isn't going to be forever, so stay hopeful and make plans, whether that's about connecting with family and friends again, or maybe taking a trip down the track. I know for some people that they can feel really concerned about their age. They've been doing IVF treatment at the end of last year, and they feel like this was like their last chance to have that happen. And you can probably speak a lot better around this than me, in terms of if their egg quality was really good and their chances were really good, then they will have the opportunity to be able to maybe pick that up again when elective surgery and things like that happen again. So perspective.
Micronutrient deficiencies, particularly folate, B12, and also CoQ10 supplementation, can improve egg quality, but it does take 3 months to work. So you do need time. So there you go. So if anyone's listening to this and you have been doing IVF and you haven't been receiving any nutritional or naturopathic support, maybe this is a really good time to connect in and focus on doing those things. And we also know that when people have a sense of control and a sense of purpose in something, then that helps alleviate anxiety. So maybe if someone was to work with you and start looking at maybe their diet,
and supplementation and whatever else can help support that, that can help give them a bit of a sense of purpose for this time and a sense of control that would then help alleviate anxiety. And maybe they'll be able to go into their first round or whatever their next round of IVF or fertility treatment is in, with how you guys talk about having that more fertile soil to plant and grow things in. So it can be definitely a good opportunity for those things. But it is hard and it is challenging, and it is okay to have those thoughts and feelings as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you're talking about the silent struggle before, I mean, having a miscarriage during this period, I can't even imagine how stressful that might be. I mean, there's so many, feelings that come to mind. Not only is it a silent battle, like you were saying, people don't know you're pregnant, which I guess the fact that you're in isolation kind of helps because, you kind of hide behind that. But, going to the hospital and having doctor's appointments and things like that, and having that uncertainty of what you should do as well. Like I've had so many clients, I've had a couple of clients, unfortunately, have miscarriages during this period.
Yeah.
And it's just, very scary. So what's your advice for people going through loss and miscarriage?
Yeah, it's really tricky. I've had some conversations with people in a similar situation, and it's heightened because, if you've already got children and you can't rely on family or friends to look after the children while you need to get support, if you need to go in for a DNC, the elective surgery challenges there. To my knowledge, most those medical procedures have been able to go ahead because they've been deemed essential. But even the people who've had to travel to have miscarriage, that fear of getting pulled over and all of that kind of stuff. So it is a very, really, really tough time and a really tough thing to go through. Creating space to be able to sit with those feelings and definitely identifying at least one support person who you can talk to about that. And I would really recommend that person is someone who can hold space for you in that place. You don't want someone who, silver linings are beautiful and they can be really great, but they have their place and time. So you don't want someone who's going to be, everything happens for a reason and all of that kind of stuff, because that can really it doesn't validate how you're feeling in that moment. So definitely identifying one key person who can help you, having a medical professional that you can talk to, and really clarifying with that person that you can call them up for a telehealth call if you need to get that additional support if you're feeling low. Really being in check with your mental health as well. If you start noticing that your thoughts and feelings are really affecting your ability to function each day, then I think it's a really important time to seek some additional support. Even if you just call Lifeline, I know some people can be reluctant to call Lifeline. I used to be a Lifeline counsellor a really long time ago when I was studying psychology, and the training that we did then was so in-depth and so rigorous and really incredible. I can only imagine how well qualified those people are today who work on the phones to give support and advice. So if people are really struggling with those things, I think definitely connecting with either that one support person or talking to Lifeline. Again, it's that whole thing of not struggling with our thoughts and feelings, just really acknowledging how upset we feel about that, and that it is compounded by everything that we feel at the moment. So at the moment, there's so much uncertainty that's happening in the world that people don't have as much bandwidth as we might have had previously to be able to tolerate stressful or upsetting events. For people who might have miscarried later or have had, have had a stillbirth or things like that, definitely accepting and seeking that professional support around that is just so important at this time, because we are one of our biggest buffers for stress. Oh, hello. A little bug fly past your face.
In this house, it's like medical cows right next to me. So I you probably noticed I didn't even move. I'm just
Didn't even flinch. One of our biggest buffers for stress is being connected with people and having our tribe. And if you're going through a huge loss at this time and you can't connect in with those people who help build you up, really try and build up the fabric of, your social fabric of being able to talk to people via Zoom, via FaceTime, start a WhatsApp group with your girlfriends, those kind of things. I definitely think, I always refer people to get support, like from someone like yourself, in terms of looking at, how their body might be depleted from that experience, because, even early pregnancy, as we know, it has such significant changes for our body. And then, subsequent changes that happen if you lose that pregnancy. It's really important that we nourish ourselves and look after ourselves during that time, as well. So,
as well, it gives you something to do. It kind of
100%.
People just want to feel like they're in control of their own health and their own body,
yeah.
and there's something that they can action.
Yeah.
So I guess, obviously check in with their GP or their OB/GYN, but also making sure that they're getting that mental health support. Are they eligible for that 5-package mental health referral after a miscarriage?
So if you've had miscarriage or stillborn, so you can get, so it's a bit confusing actually, because they call it pregnancy support counselling. So pregnancy support counselling, although it goes for a year postpartum, so you're eligible during that time. But I also think a lot of people, I seem to find, don't always know that you can just contact a therapist directly and work with them. You don't always have to go through your GP, or you don't have to necessarily have a mental health care plan as well. You do need those things to be able to access a Medicare rebate. But I certainly have a lot of people who I'm now referring on, because I'm currently on maternity leave with the boys, but that I refer directly to my colleagues, because they just want to access support without having to go via, any other route. And it's okay as well to, I'll say to anyone, if you're accessing a therapist, we don't mind if you come and see us once. Like, it's not like you have to feel obligated or locked in to keep coming and seeing us. Sometimes people just need an opportunity to vent and really focus on themselves for a good hour. Other people prefer to have ongoing support, and other people need sporadic support. And of course, at the other end of the spectrum, there's those families and people who need acute therapeutic support. But so people can definitely access that pregnancy support counselling. That's via your GP. So if you talk to your GP, if you feel like you need to talk to someone about it, and it's not just limited to this time. I think I would say that to everyone as well. What's happening at the moment with COVID-19 is a really prolonged period of uncertainty and stress. In comparison to other countries, we're quite lucky in Australia. It seems that it's been handled really well. But in other countries, it's been an extraordinarily long period of time. And for us here, even like a month in, it's a long period of time for a lot of people. So people might notice that they're functioning okay at the moment. They might be okay that a pregnancy loss has happened. Perhaps it's the first time they've fallen pregnant. So they might be feeling really optimistic, like, wow, like I can fall pregnant. That's so great to know, which is, not to dismiss their feelings of loss around that as well. But also people might notice that it might be early 2021 and they're feeling really low and sad around that. So don't ever think that you should be over something within a certain period of time. Things can come up at a later date. Other things can trigger memories of something. So just really supporting yourself in terms of, as well, getting that really good sleep. Sleep is so important. It's a foundation for everything. Getting that really good sleep, supporting themselves with any depletion, any of those physiological changes that are happening, definitely connecting in with a support person in their circle. And then if they need external help to talk to someone, definitely reach out. Another thing that I see a lot of now, and I don't know how well it plays out for a lot of people, is because we've got social media, which is so amazing, like Instagram and everything. I love it. I think it's fantastic that we can connect with people, but people are often processing things in real time. And so I'll notice people will be going through something and they'll be storying that in real time. They'll be posting about that in real time. And so I just really encourage anyone, if you find yourself doing that, just before you post or just before you live stream, just ask yourself, what is it that I'm trying to achieve here? If you've been through a struggle and you're trying to impart wisdom because you can help other people not feel alone in that, then that can be a really, really beautiful thing. But if you're feeling really isolated, if you're feeling that you need validation, and those types of things, it can be really good to just check in your immediate environment first. Like, can I get that from my friends and my family first? Because you can't control the reaction that people are going to give you online. And also, things don't always translate in writing. So someone might write a comment and you might take it a wrong way, and that can really exacerbate those feelings that you might be having at that time. Another thing for women who might be going through this is, don't blame yourself. It's so important. See, people blame themselves. If only I didn't do this, or maybe I did that, and this is why this happened, or my body did this, and they have that sense of failure. I think it's really important not to blame yourself. I heard a medical professional once talking about miscarriage, and he was saying, you know, it is really hard and it's really tough for people. It's also a really incredibly smart mechanism of our body. So just keeping that in mind can be really important. Not being really hard on yourself and beating yourself up, because you know you're not in control of that process at all.
You're not in control of how the DNA's joined to the two DNA pools have joined together.
100%.
Stones and all those tiny processes that go on. There's only so much that's within your control, and so much of it is up to luck or God or whatever it is.
Whatever you want to call it. Exactly. And what have you been finding has been really helpful for your clients that have been going through this? What's been the most helpful?
So putting them into contact with a miscarriage and loss counsellor has been one thing, but then also supporting them to get straight back onto their prenatal multis and making sure that they're doing all those fertility things, because then it's like, okay, we've got 3 months to get you in really great health again. Giving them things to do, lots of nourishing recipes, like warming things, and then also the reassurance that, you know, other than in a few very, you know, more complex cases, it's going to pass. Like it will happen in its own time, and it's just something that you need to, I guess, sit with. And you know, I guess it's a very traumatic thing, not knowing when it's actually going to happen, like knowing that something's come to an end inside of you, and when are you going to, you know, physically have to face and see that, and knowing what time frame and all of that kind of stuff, I think has been really difficult for some of my clients.
It's a really difficult space to be in. And I guess one tip I can give for people that are in that space, I mean, in some ways, I don't want to say we're lucky. It's not that we're lucky, but there is a benefit to be found in the fact that we are at home during this time. So you don't have that additional pressure of, well, can I go and take that meeting? Because what if it happens during that meeting? Can I go and do this? Because what if it happens while I'm there? Like that can be really, really difficult for people. From a mental health perspective, one of the things that I would encourage people to do is when they're having thoughts around, so I think a lot of the time people have thoughts around, what did I do? That they did something wrong, that there's something wrong with their body, a sense of failure, and then those senses of grief and loss. So it can cover, some people might have some of that, some people might have all of that. And it goes in ebbs and flows over that time. And so when you're sitting in that space of window, just before whatever you're thinking, don't try and talk yourself out of your thoughts, but before whatever, whenever you have a thought come up, you know, it might be like, I don't want to drill this home because this is definitely not my message, but if someone has like, I failed my baby or something like that, if they're feeling that, just add in front of that, I'm having the thought that. And if they're feeling really angry or frustrated, I'm feeling really angry and frustrated. It just helps distance us from those thoughts and stops us from becoming fused in that way of thinking. And then we don't get that internal negative loop or that sense of hopelessness that can arise from that. So just adding in, I'm having the thought that, or I'm feeling just in front of whatever those typical thoughts and feelings might be that arise, is really, really important. And another thing that I think can be important for people to know is that sometimes it can be painful to have a miscarriage as well. It can be like a really intense, severe period. So I don't know, what are your suggestions for people around managing pain relief and being prepared for that?
Yeah, so one of my go-tos for pain relief is actually something called PEA, which is a compounding only sort of nutrient. Our body actually makes it ourselves, so we're essentially boosting our levels. It's on the endogenous eocannabinoid system, and it's actually been super helpful for a lot of endometriosis clients as well.
Yeah, right.
I find that a really effective pain management, because obviously there's lots of information out there about ibuprofen and you know, like not with, and I don't want to sort of add to any I don't want to give any misinformation, but I think even the World Health Organization has come out and said that it's not called non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, there's something else. But basically ibuprofen or Nurofen can potentially make COVID cases worse.
Yeah.
If you're looking for a pain relief option, and you know, whether you're having heavy periods or going through a miscarriage, I feel like for a lot of women that's going to be at the back of their mind as well. So know that there are other natural options that don't increase, you know, your risk of having a worse COVID infection per se.
Yeah, definitely.
And if you're on for a prolonged period of time as well, you don't really want to be smashing the Panadol, because Panadol depletes glutathione, and glutathione is the master antioxidant in the body, which is really important when you do jump back on the fertility bandwagon. Antioxidant capacity is really important for fertility.
Yeah, and is that true that Panadol can decrease your immunity as well? Is that something?
I think the mechanism's probably via glutathione. So basically glutathione reduces oxidative stress.
Right, okay. So it's probably coming through that.
Reduces a fever as well, which I'm, you know, other than a fever over 40 degrees, I'm not a big fan of reducing fevers in acute infections, obviously not in other infections, but in acute infections like viral illnesses. I'm not a fan of suppressing that fever, because that's the body's natural immune response.
Definitely.
And fight off that infection. So there are lots of natural pain relief options, and PEA would be one of them, but there's also lots of beautiful botanicals and herbal medicines that are both anti-inflammatory and super helpful.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess this is probably maybe a good time to just mention, like, if anyone is listening, it's so hard for us to like cover across everything that you know about in a conversation like this. So definitely book in with Britt if you want to explore any of those things in a deeper level. And if you need a referral to a therapist, just contact me and I'll send you to someone who's amazing. So it's hard. We're trying to like disclaimer ourselves and be careful, but so if we just point that out, then hopefully everyone listening can understand those kind of things. And for anyone who, it's depending on the time of when you listen to this, so people might be back to getting their, HCG levels tested and stuff like that, and they might be given the advice that those levels are dropping and that they can expect a miscarriage to come. That's really devastating. Clear your schedule for the day, whatever you need to do to take that time out. And then depending on what our guidelines are around that, it's really important that I think that you talk to, you know, if you might have some friends that are living nearby, or you might have some family living nearby, how can you guys coexist as a unit in self-isolation? Because you are going to need extra support as you go through that process. You're going to need that mental space to be able to, feel that loss. And you're also going to need physically, you might be needing some extra showers, you know, a nice hot bath if you've got a bath, time to just, sit down and watch a show and things like that. So I think it's really important that people, prepare for that in advance if they do have the opportunity. I know people definitely, miscarriage can come as quite a surprise, but I think sometimes for the client group that are going through IVF or going through fertility treatment, they are sometimes made aware before their body actually goes through those processes. So important.
I want to give our birth and postpartum ladies a little bit of time. We've got a little bit more time.
Yes.
Kids
Okay.
screaming through the door.
Yeah. I got Scott. I said, take the boys outside. Otherwise, I'd have them climbing on me. Yeah.
So, I mean, a lot of women who are about to give birth or have given birth, I guess there's two sides to it. Either you're about to have a baby and hopefully you don't have a too rigid birth plan. I always advise my clients to have a very open-minded with lots of different options, lots of forks in the road options birth plan, and to be flexible. But I guess if you are about to give birth, a lot of people aren't allowed to have their doula or support person, and they're doing it alone. Plus compounding the fear of going into a hospital, if you are going into the hospital system and, there's COVID around. I guess, what are some tips for COVID?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So one of the first things that I think we need to do is really be aware of those things that can exacerbate our feelings of stress, anxiety, and fear. It's really normal. We're all going to experience that throughout this for one reason or another. But particularly for women who are pregnant or women who are about to give birth. So I think it's what's it called, the Australian and New Zealand, the Royal Australian and New Zealand College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. They have a really good page on their website that's updating people on
just leave it. I told you it was about to happen. Sorry.
I know. No, don't be. This is part of it. And it's so good for everyone to see this, because we are trying to manage all of these things, and this is real life. And I think it's really nice. Yeah. No. You try it with your eyes first all the time, don't you? You're like, read my mind, please. That never works.
I feel like remember that video that went viral? I think it was
the little, yes, I love that.
I mean, everyone loves that guy now. We all laughed at him at the time.
Yeah, I love that. But I think it's so good to be relaxed about those things, because then, like, why does it matter if someone's, kid comes in, if the message gets out eventually? But so the Royal Australian and New Zealand College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, they have a great page on their website where they're just keeping people updated. And so it can be really important when we're feeling really overwhelmed with that sense of fear to check in with what the facts are. So we know that in Australia at the moment, the cases are like quite low comparatively. It looks like we have significantly slowed the spread, and that people are relatively on top of it. We've got the new app out as well, which should really help with those types of things. And the evidence so far and please jump in if you've heard anything different, but certainly the stuff that I've read is that there's been no links between COVID-19 and miscarriage, any birth defects, any preterm babies, and that it's been safe to breastfeed. It hasn't been transferred through breastfeeding as well. So those are really, really reassuring things to keep in mind. In terms of women who are about to give birth, it's really disappointing when you have in your mind the way that you wanted things to happen. But it's really important that what you touched on as well is having that psychological flexibility for things to change and to be adaptive. And that's, part of being resilient and tolerant to stressful situations. We do know that when people are in that calm state and they are tolerant, they've got that resilience, they can tolerate a lot more stressful things happening closer together. But other people who might be more stress sensitive, they need like a longer time between transitions and things like that. So if you're about to give birth, things that I would be thinking of if that was in my stages, because stress, stress is not a bad thing. Stress can be really good. If we have, stress can help build resilience in the right amounts. I suppose that's not a great way to explain it, but I'm trying to simplify something. But if you're about to give birth, that is a stressful situation to be in, because it is a time of rapid change, and there's all those physiological things that are going on in your body as well. So think about your birth in terms of like how can you make big transitions into smaller transitions, more manageable transitions. So it might be you had in your mind that you were going to have a water birth and you were going to have a doula there and your partner and your mum, and now you have chosen that you're going to have your partner there. So if you're going to have the water birth in the hospital and something happens and you need to get out of the thing, so what can you put your partner in charge of that's going to help you be able to break that one big transition down into smaller transitions? So it might be that you realize that you're going to have to change something. So then your partner is in charge of telling you, okay, in this next big deep breath, this is what we're going to do. So they're going to help you in the focus on your breath before and after any transitions to help ease you out of that. If you've chosen to have music in there, they might fade the music in and out of transitions or turn it up a bit more, whatever you need in that time. If a new person is coming into the room when you're giving birth, instead of you feeling that you have to introduce yourself to that person or find out who they are, put your support person, whether that's your partner, your mum, whoever that might be, in charge of that. So you know that transition of a new person coming in, that there's that buffer of someone else. That person is going to explain to me who that is, and then I'm going to know. So it's just thinking about big things that can happen and how can you break that down and have your support person be a buffer either side of changes that can happen in birth. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I feel like I need a graph to explain what I'm trying to convey.
I was having like flashbacks of my birth.
But you just want, if something's going to happen, how can you have, good transitions in that and have that communicated to the people around you in a way that helps you not go into a state of high fear. That's what we want to avoid, that that really big fear and terror that can sometimes happen. And how can you stay, if you really had, you really wanted your mum involved, how can they be involved? Can you FaceTime them while you're in there? What's going to help you feel connected and feel supported during that time? I've heard a lot of people express fear, and I don't think we're having to do it in Australia. You might know better than me, around having to wear a mask while giving birth.
That one.
Yeah, I've heard. I don't know if it's happened in France or or Italy or where it's been happening, but people are really concerned about having to wear masks because of the breathing and everything like that. So thinking about challenges that might come up and like, what's the evidence that that's going to hinder my chances of breathing, and just really connecting in with those fearful thoughts and then trying to find like actual evidence of them to either support them or disprove them. And that can really help us feel a bigger sense of control. I think too, really trusting the medical experts and the scientists that are on top of this. There are people whose life's work is dedicated to this, kind of stuff. My one of my good friends, she's doing her PhD in pandemic preparedness, and she's an expert in this stuff. So really, sometimes I think with so many courses available and so much information available, it can both be a blessing and a curse, in that we sometimes think that people have to be in charge and in command of everything in their lives. Whereas deferring to experts or outsourcing things to experts, that's a really helpful thing to do. Your obstetrician is there to support you. The nurse is there to support you. The anaesthetist, if you need one there, is there to support you and help you through this process. And all of those people are so highly conscious of COVID-19 that they are going to be putting those procedures in place to help them with that.
Yeah.
Jumping into women postpartum, I think one of the most significant things is in a good way, it can be give women more of that time to be connecting with their baby without interruption from a lot of different people. That can be a blessing for some people. Some people can find that quite isolating. It really depends on people's family, friend dynamics and all of that kind of stuff. I know that I've heard that some people's partners now, because they're working from home, they're getting that additional extended support beyond paternity leave.
Oh, see, I kind of, as soon as you said that, I was like, oh no, stress. Like imagine I was trying to work and especially with my firstborn, he just cried constantly. That for us would have been a nightmare. But I guess if you had a good baby and, you know, a husband who had more flexible work hours, that could actually.
And that's the thing, depending on what the work is, depending on the work. But having someone who's there to be able to give you a shower or check in on you and the baby while you're sleeping or whatever you're doing, that can sometimes be really reassuring for people. I know that a lot of people are really feeling it not having the match nurses come to the house. That's being done by video link at the moment. And I know certainly for myself, I really liked someone having eyes on my baby and giving me that reassurance. And so that can be a really tricky time for people to navigate as well. So if you're feeling any anxiety or any worry around your baby, so you might be noticing that your baby's looking quite jaundiced and you're worried that they're a little bit, you know, that there might be something happening there, or you might be worried, you know, that they're not latching properly or any of those kind of things, definitely seek support and push to get the support that you need in that. Don't be afraid to, if you're talking to a healthcare provider, to say, you know, how are you going to make sure we're safe if we come and visit you in person, or if you come and visit us, you know, how, you know, are you taking like all those precautions? Most people are, but sometimes just for us, that sense of reassurance. No one's going to think that you're, you know, horrible for asking those types of things. So I think managing feelings of anxiety around that, and just, again, it's that whole thing of going, I'm having the thought that, or I'm feeling, and then going, who can I look to in this moment to either help me understand this better, look at this better, who can put eyes on my baby? Is it my partner? You know, who can help me with my latch? Maybe it's my partner again. Possums Clinic in Brisbane have a great online gestalt breastfeeding program. So if mums are at home and really struggling with breastfeeding and thinking, gosh, I just really need a lactation consultant, or I don't know what's going on, go to Possums online and go to their gestalt breastfeeding program. It's really helpful. It's got videos. It's great. So that's something that people can definitely access.
I know whenever my little ones got unwell or had a fever when they were quite little, there was a number that I used to call, it's the Health Direct hotline. And they're all trained nurses on there. And, you know, if you need to talk something through or try and figure out what you should do, that's also a really great number to call. Are there other specific supports for postpartum?
So checking in with cope.org, so the Centre of Perinatal Excellence, they actually have a like an email thing that people can sign up to. I think it's called Cope Better. You can find it on their website. It's just cope.org. So they offer a lot of perinatal support here in Australia. Also, one worth mentioning, I think, as well, is Penny from Sick Happens on Instagram. She offers consults with families. She's a nurse, and so that's a good resource to check out as well, for people who might be feeling a little bit worried. And then definitely the Possums Clinic. So Possums has got nurses, therapists and pediatricians, and they offer consults via telehealth as well. They've also got parenting groups for people to join as well, called Pips for Parents, and that's a great one. I think at the moment through COVID, they're also doing a live like video call once a week on different stuff. And I think it's Eddie Bartholomew, and I can't think what the other lady's name is. I'm sorry, but they've started a mothers group for women who are stuck at home during this time. I'll DM it to you.
Janine, the doula who I work with quite a lot, she and some other doula have also set up a mothers group on a WhatsApp group.
Great.
It seems like there are options for mothers groups. Maybe we'll drop that into the notes. So
Perfect.
people can find those online mothers groups, because I think, going to those mothers groups can be super helpful. And also great for social interaction and all of that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah. So. And also, if it's not for you, it's not for you. That's okay too. I think that's good for people to know that it's that it's okay. But yeah. So
and if you don't like your mother's group, you can always ask to like go to a different one. My first mother's group, I was traumatized. They all just basically sat around and whinged about their husbands, and I was like, I'm out. Like,
yeah, not the right fit. yeah, definitely, really, really important. I think, just people knowing that they can just reach out for help when they're not certain about things. I definitely get so many DMs on Instagram around baby sleep. People worried about it or wanting to change it, or feeding, crying, fuss problems and stuff like that. I'm in the process at the moment of setting up a new website called Navigating Childhood, just to help people really connect in with those resources that can be really helpful during that time. But another thing that I do want to mention before we finish up is, so I practice a lot from acceptance and commitment therapy. I think it's a really great form of therapy that can help with a lot of things. And there's a really great acronym called FACE COVID. And when you go through the different steps on that, it can be really helpful. So I'll mention it here with the view that you and I can maybe link to the video that'll help walk people through what those steps are. It's just a really good way to sort of think about how we can face COVID over, the next little while and in the months and years to come, because this really is a defining moment in time.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Cara.
No worries.
All those things in the notes so people aren't sort of having to frantically write it down.
Great.
Thank you so much for giving us your time and your wisdom. You've
pleasure.
And lots and lots of, you're going to help so many people. It's amazing.
It's so nice to talk to you. And if anyone has any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm always happy to answer. Yeah.
So you're Mama Maze?
It's Mama Maze, and soon I'll have Navigating Childhood up as well. So
you're a busy lady. How are you doing on this on maternity?
Late nights? No, not really. Little bits and pieces. It takes me ages.
Yeah, and lots of coffees coming out.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much, Cara.